9.5 FM. Kite Radio.
Looking for a new job opportunity? Let Strategic Recruitment Solutions, Inc. help you maximize your potential. Visit them at 230 Camp Street, Lacytown, Georgetown, obliquely opposite the New Citizens Bank. Strategic Recruitment Solutions. New ideas, better HR.
It is 19 hours 30 and you are tuned into the radio with a difference. Yes, that is Kite Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM, and it is time to enter room 592 where we unleash the truth. Tonight, as usual, at the helm of this evening's program is Dr. Yog Mahadeo and senior journalist of Kite News, Leonard Gildarie. Tonight, their guest, TCI candidate Shaz Ali. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening to you. Good evening to you. How are you, sir? And Leonard, welcome. Mr. Ali, welcome to room 592.
Hey, thanks for having me.
To our viewers and listeners out there, we welcome you once again to room 592, where we unleash the truth. And ladies and gentlemen, a lot of things have been happening at the Arthur Chung Convention Center and certainly all across Guyana. As to those of you who would have joined us today at 2 o'clock, 1:30, where Mr. Leonard Gildarie had his elections watch and COVID watch, you would have learned a number of things. And just before we get on the show with Mr. Shaz Ali, I want to let you know that there has been 53 boxes that we would have seen completed today. But the big news, Leonard, we'll get to more of those boxes with Mr. Ali because he is hot off the press, so to speak. But Leonard, there is a damning, as you know, yesterday there was a damning statement coming out from Mr. Golding that spoke to the transparency of the attempt to thwart the elections results. Today, as you know, Mr. Harman, I believe, issued his own statement that sought to attack Golding and his credibility. And this evening, ladies and gentlemen, we have another Caribbean person, I think Mr. Ronald Saunders, who has said that attacking Golding does not change the need to have a credible elections. And so obviously this puts a perspective on things here, Leonard, that, you know, Harman basically has created a narrative for his people, for their persons to share and everything, which is fine. It's all well and good. It's all in politics. But at the end of the day, the bottom line, as Mr. Saunders is reminding us, remains the need for credible elections. Leonard?
Yes, and I'm looking here. It is quite right. Ron Saunders, and who's
it's all well and good. It's all.
He is the son-in-law of Sir Sridat Ramphal, and you know he was former Attorney General in Guyana, very well known. Ron Saunders, I think, write also for Kite News from time to time, and he's also well known in the Caribbean and in London there. And here he is saying on his Facebook page, attacking former Jamaica Prime Minister Golding does not alter international demand for credible Guyana election result, and you're quite right. If you get down into it, and I guess these are some of the things that are coming out. Do you go after the messenger? Do you kill the messenger? But this is room 592, so we'd have to examine that. So over to you, Yog. So Yog, you there?
Thank you, Leonard. And also as we get into that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that as of today, earlier today, Region 1 would have been concluded with the exception of one box. And at the end of it, Shaz, you're going to jump right in here, my brother. Welcome to room 592. As I read these numbers out to the people of Guyana, at the end of region District 1, the results are, and I'm calling out just for the general elections, the results are APNU AFC 3,904, LJP 168, PPPC 7914, PRP 24, and URP 6. And the results that would have been declared in March earlier, there is not much difference. There is a difference of 1 for APNU AFC, 2 for LJP, a number, let me get that number just now for the PPPC, and 1 for PRP, 2 for URP. Shaz, welcome to room 592. And I must say to you, we asked you to come on the show because you're one of the younger blood out there on the election scene, sir. And I know that your experience might not have been what you thought it could have been. But hey, that's Guyana and rude awakening for you young politicians, right? Shaz? Well, we seem to be getting this problem, Leonard. We have just lost Shaz, it seems like.
So we're going to continue to do that. I'm not sure what has happened in here.
Okay,
let's go ahead.
So while we're getting Shaz again, we're going to get back to that. Yeah, correct. And we can relook at those numbers, Leonard. You're hearing me well, right?
Yes, I'm hearing you very well, and I'm listening to the figures. So that means, according to the figures, they're given 1 or 2. It's not a big figure in region 1. Just a couple difference. So you hear me?
That's right.
Yes.
So the APNU AFC, is 3904. APNU AFC is 3904 compared to 3905 that was declared in early March. LJP is 168 compared to 170 that was declared early March. PPPC is 7914. This is about 100 less than was declared in March of April 22. PRP is 23 and URP 8. Don't forget that 1 box is still outstanding. This is the box that would have been soaked. Leonard, over to you.
Yes, and that would be interesting. And so, do we have any indication, Yog, whether that 100 is about the same kind of figures that is missing from this figure that was declared?
It would appear so, Leonard. At this stage, I don't want to get into any conjecture. I want to just ensure that we can read the numbers released to us. And tomorrow, certainly, or whenever they decide to release those figures from the 1 box, what we might need to do is look at the SOP for that 1 box that has been read. Shaz, welcome back. And I don't know at what stage we lost you, sir, but welcome back to the show. And I just want to go right over to you, sir, for your experience and what's been happening there.
Yeah, you lost me where you were reading out the numbers for Region 1. I was comparing the numbers earlier for Region 1, the S from the Statement of Reconks. It almost matches the original figures that GCOM declared back in March. The little difference that we have, you might get that from the actual box that was not counted as yet. But the solution to that box is simple. Just go to the SOP that was there before. If it's not damaged, go to the one that GCOM have in its possession. GCOM do have a SOP for Region 1 in its possession. So that's a simple matter to solve at the end of the recount for that particular box. I'm sure it's not enough to move the entire election.
Correct. And Shaz, just for clarification here, Leonard, you and I spoke of this earlier today. For that 1 box, Shaz, what GCOM could do is release its SOP. If it's hesitant to release the rest, release it for the 1 box. And Leonard, maybe the public can make a call. Maybe this is the time. Bring the PPP SOP, bring APNU AFC's SOP, and bring GCOM SOP for the 1 box. And let's have a litmus test. What's your take on that, Shaz?
Yeah,
our internet connection really seems to be
I'm for
unstable
using the
tonight.
SOP that was originally used, but I'm for using the SOP that was originally declared by GCOM. But now I'm hearing that I think it's one of the GCOM commissioners for the AP and UFC. They're saying that we should go to a by-election for the voters, or that box go back to an election and vote again. But to me, that's completely unnecessary. Right now, we're just looking for the results, and going back to the SOP is the only solution for that right now.
And I want to jump in here, Yog. I want to ask a quick question. That
Correct,
one,
because going back to an election for that one box is going to raise more. Go ahead. Go
right?
ahead.
And so I want to ask you, Yog, pretty quickly from your experience or what you know of what the regulation states. If that one box is unable to be declared, could the entire region or district be declared region one? Is there anything blocking that?
Shaz, what's your comment to that?
That's a good question. That's a good question. But for sure that whichever side shows sign of losing, or the results showing sign that they will lose, most likely they will kick up a storm about that particular box. It could become a legal matter that they could take it to the court just to get to know if we should just use the forced declaration of region one,
But Shaz,
especially the SOP. Sorry.
hear this
Yeah.
point. Correct. But Shaz, hear this point. So the number of votes, in other words, the difference between PPPC and APNU AFC in that region is about 2,000 odd votes. The one box will not have 2,000 votes. In other words, it will not affect the outcome of the election where the seats and the computation of seats are concerned.
That's correct. I think it's about 170 something valid voters from that box alone.
Correct. So you see the
will not
point
be
there,
enough to move the entire election.
right? So you see the point there, Leonard, that even if one were to say that all of those votes were to go to the APNU AFC, it still will not change the outcome of that region's declaration in terms of who win and who will get the necessary seats. So that alone will answer, I think, what your concern there, Leonard.
No, I was asking specifically. This is a strange times that we're in, and the fact is, I'm not sure what the regulations state in terms of all the boxes being counted and being declared, or if one is not declared, what does the law state? Regardless whether the numbers are immaterial or not, is what is the impact on that one box that is not declared. So that is what I really want to know.
Correct. And we can certainly seek some legal advice there and get back to our viewers and listeners on that. But in the meanwhile, Shaz, let's go with your experience there, my friend. How has it been for you today?
Well, today, I was there for the counting of at least 3 boxes. The experience so far, well, not just today, but so far, has so far been very transparent and so far credible. It's expected that the end of the recounting, that the results will be credible, no doubt. There are too much eyes. GCOM has put everything in place for all its agents and the local observers. I know there's AmCham there and there's CARICOM. I could conclude that when this is over, the results will be credible. Every ballot is counted, every envelope is opened, every envelope is scrutinized during this recount process so far.
Okay, great. And Shaz, I wanna also get to your, you have been there, a week has gone by, and your confidence in the process is high, isn't it?
Yes, the confidence in the process is very high because of what I am actually experiencing being there. I mean, people like the media and so does not know what's going on in the rooms, but the amount of measures put in place to count every box. I never seen something like this before. Never seen something like this before. If this was done from the beginning, probably yes, we would have a late results, but we would have very credible results.
Great. Shaz, let's talk about something else outside of your experience there. There are 2 things. One is that you and your party has taken an initiative, no pun intended here, but you have taken a wonderful initiative where you have created such systems to share to the general public the results of that is the SORs as you are getting them. So you want to tell us all a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, based on past experience with GCOM and getting information out there to the public, especially dealing with results, has always been sluggish or unreliable to get information there. So being with my IT background, I decided to create a website to deliver the results the right way to the public. Look at this election, for example, when I think it was March 3rd and 4th, when they start releasing the results on their website, they were just screenshots of there was just an image of the actual result that they took at the region 4 district office, and that was not enough for the people just to see a few numbers on the screen, and it wasn't even correct. So I decided to create this website with real SORs that people could look and compare for themselves, SOR that we could tell you that are real and we have in our possession.
Correct. And to the viewers and listeners out there, you can certainly go to GuyanaResults.com, which is the website. Am I right, Shaz?
Yeah, that's right.
That's
GuyanaResults.com.
GuyanaResults.com is the website that Shaz and team are updating as they go along. Shaz has been instrumental in creating this website. And on it, you would find that the numbers are there, as well as a snapshot. That is a real picture of the SOR itself. So you could see that the numbers that they're inputting into their tabulation there matches the SOR pictures that he is. Shaz, that's a lot of work. I mean, I know that you're busy in there. How do you manage to get all of this done, sir?
Well, I tried to get it done as soon as I think it was a few days after the recount started. So the ballot box count wasn't high, so it was a good time to start. And I'm doing it by myself, and I'm getting the SOR from myself and Rhonda, the presidential candidate, and other candidates who are inside doing counting. So started as early as a few days of the recounting start, so it wouldn't be hard to just get the SOPs uploaded.
Great. Shaz, Region 1, District 1 has certainly been completed except for the one box that was soaked, and Region 5 has started. But your colleague would have shared on social media that 2 boxes have some eye-openers in them. One has multiple missing required PE envelopes and the other no poll book. I don't know if you are in a position to expand on that, sir.
No, not really, because that happened late this afternoon. I wasn't there when it happened, so I can't really confirm anything about that 2 boxes.
Leonard, you were...
Yes, what Rhonda Lamb, his colleague, is saying, and she's there. She was there at the convention center, and she's saying is Region 5 has started with a bang. 2 ballot boxes have some eye openers in them. 1 box has multiple missing required PE envelopes. The other, there's no poll book entries to indicate why the OLE has 2 voters, but 4 voters voted, which means more voters voted than is actually on the OLE. So I'm not sure this is what she has said. It immediately, of course, has been shared like crazy. But this is Region 5. This is just one particular box. I can't remember. I think Region 5 was won by the PPP. Do you remember?
I should confirm that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
I'm checking it right now.
But just to comment, I mean, we're going to hope to get Ms. Lamb on our discussion maybe tomorrow, Leonard, if that is possible. But ladies and gentlemen, don't forget that sometimes she said the right thing. That is that you require the book, you require the envelopes and so forth, because you need to also map where things are coming from. Shaz, if I'm not wrong, you would find that in the boxes, the military votes would also have been merged, well, not necessarily in the box per se, but within each counting of every box, the military votes would have been merged into that process, isn't it?
Yeah, the disciplined forces votes are merged into the process. They're counted all together, so
yes.
we wouldn't know what's the count of the military votes alone. And I just confirm it was the PP that won the Region 5 district.
Okay, great. Leonard?
So what you would have so far, I think it's a little too early to, you see several stories that are coming out from these recounts that is ongoing in the various regions. So we got to be very careful in how we take the information. However, it would raise eyebrows if 2 persons are on a particular list, or not more than 10 persons, and 20 persons are listed or turned up to vote. So this is one of the things that the coalition has been claiming what happened in some regions. However, it's a little too early yet to say anything, or whether this is of any import or whether of any significance at this point in time.
Right. Shaz, I want to take your mind over to another scenario that obviously the entire nation has, has been, their entire imagination, all of our imagination and thoughts are captured on it. And that is, as you release these SOPs, especially, well, reason four, it is reason four, we cannot help but compare the SORs to the declaration of Mr. Mingo. And you yourself would have made certain releases on that, sir. So without saying anything, let me hand it over to you to walk us through what might have been some of the inconsistencies you found.
Yeah. Well, during the readout of the SOPs at the Ashman's building and the second reading at the GCOM headquarters in Kingston, we had audio recording of it. We noticed that the figures for the AP and UFC, some of them which have high voters in for the ballot box, the votes were either increased but between 30 to about 50 votes for the AP and UFC, and they take off some from the PPP. They play around with how the number is. I mean, I can't say what's on their SOP, but from the look at the figures, it's like if the PPP had 50, they just take out 20. If the coalition had 117, they would put on like 147. It's like a pattern they're following just to keep the amount of the amount of voters in the area balanced with with their fake SOPs. It is fake SOPs.
Right. Well, Shaz, what we found too is that if one were to look at some of the figures, and if you were to look at what Mr. Golding stated, he gave an example that is very glaring. He said, for example, in box number 4062, APNU AFC got 182. This is according to the SOPs. PPP got 43, but Mingo's numbers were 292 and 33. So that in that box, therefore, there would have been much more voters, much more numbers than actual voters.
Yeah, there are a lot more boxes like that too, where they have more voters on the Mingo sheet compared to the real number. It happens to some boxes in Timeri too.
This points to the concerns that your colleagues, Ms. Lam and everybody would have been expressing on the day, that fateful day when Mingo made that declaration. And this has nothing to do with party politics. You are a Guyanese, you sought to represent the electorate, and so you wanted a transparent result. Now, the APNO AFC narrative has been that you guys, you disrupted. You were a disruptive force at the GCOM building. What do you say to that, sir?
Well, I wouldn't call it a disruptive force. So, I mean, we have to object. If you're seen wrong in front of your face, we have to object. I mean, we had numbers that we didn't have all the SOPs, but we had numbers that we could have used to compare. So we had I think it was over 200 SOPs that our members and candidates took from polling station the very night or the next day of the election. And if you're going to be sitting there and listening to numbers for various ballot boxes being inflated and it's not matching with what you have, I mean, the place, it must get disruptive. I mean, it wouldn't be something like you're just barging in how everyone is claiming. We're just trying to get the voice over before they get past actually declaring the region 4, then go straight to declaring the entire results. So if everyone stayed quiet, it would have been probably March 7, and we have a new government. And we have the government is already sworn in. If everyone stayed quiet.
Right. And Shaz, today, Mr. David Patterson expressed an opinion that he still feels, notwithstanding all that has come out, he feels that the Mingo's declarations matches very closely his party's SOPs. And he also feels that GCOM should still go ahead and use Mingo's declaration and swear in a government. What's your reaction, sir?
Well, that's ludicrous. How can you say something like using the SOP that you have in your possession and none of them, especially from District 4, matches the figures that Mingo have read out to everyone? I mean, as a minister, they would go on record and say, and besides that, show us your SOPs. They cannot show us their SOPs up to today. Even if the party itself cannot show their SOP, they only say that they have it and it match, and their figures match the Mango figures, but they cannot show it up to today. I mean, the entire
Correct.
world was there. We all saw what happened.
Well, the amazing thing for me, Shaz, if Mr. David Patterson is saying that the figures Mingo declared were very close to his party's SOPs, it means in box 4062, the APNU AFC SOP, Leonard, is showing 100 more voters than actually exist in that region. And my question has been, I mean, every time I say this, Leonard smiles, but my question is this where this party is finding all these dead people from? Because that's how Mingo got those numbers, you know?
Well, I'm not sure where dead people are coming from. I don't see dead people. However, I want to ask this straight to Mr. Ali, just to go back to our previous questions. He would have made it very clear that 200 SOPs would have been gathered by his party by various means. I want to ask you straight up, Mr. Ali. Were those figures the same one that you were comparing to what Mr. Mingo was declaring?
The one that was compared in the audio clip,
Yes.
yeah, one of them were, and I have a lot more audio for SOPs that we have, that I'm going to only release until the SOR is declared.
No, 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 no. What I'm trying to really get at, the one of the stories that is being told out there, is that you guys do not really, the small parties, and forgive me for using that term, the other parties would not have had the means of getting all the SOPs, and therefore they would have been using what the PPP probably give to them, and so therefore this thing here, and of course that leads to the assumption that whatever the PPP gave is the right thing, and the coalition is saying that that may not necessarily be true. In fact, they're saying that the ones that the PPP has are the ones that are not real. They have the ones that are real. So that's why I'm asking you, for the record's sake, the ones that you have in
Yeah,
your possessions, are those the ones that you would have independently gathered and verified?
that's correct. The ones that we have in our possession, Rhonda was there, Rhonda Lam, she was there. She was actually doing the comparison with our SOPs, and I mean our SOP that our member and candidates took pictures of at the polling stations, and we had to wait on those specific numbers to reach because we don't have all the SOPs. So we had to
Right.
wait on those specific ballot boxes numbers to call before we could actually do our own comparison at the reading. And it
Right.
was our SOP. No SOPs from us came from the PPP. I don't know where the other parties got theirs from, but all of our SOPs came from our members and candidates who took pictures themselves at the polling stations.
Right.
Which are the regions that you participated in when it comes to the general and the regional?
Region 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10. Six regions.
6 regions. Okay. Over to you, Yog.
So Leonard, here is another dichotomy we have. Today, Mr. David Patterson was on air saying that he believes his party's SOPs closely matches what Mr. Mingo released. His surrogates, all during today, you would have seen some of them. They discredited Bruce Golding's statement by asking Bruce Golding, where did you get your SOPs from that for you to compare? Yet, Golding has made an assertion. Take box 4062, forget everything else. Take box 4062. The Mingo's numbers were 292 for APNU AFC and 33 for PPPC. So let us say, why can't Mr. David Patterson then say, okay, let's take this challenge from Mr. Golding and let's produce box 4062 and show that Mr. Golding is wrong, rather than beat around the bush. You know, it's easy to talk, it's easy to throw all the adjectives in the air, but when it's time to prove it up, that's where people are missing. And they're going to say, we can't do that, and our party will this and our party will that. But Leonard, am I wrong? Take box 4062, produce Shaz's SOP, produce PPP's SOP, and produce your SOP, Mr. APNU AFC, and let's compare it with Mingo's numbers, if you want to discredit Golding's figures.
But it's very clear, Mr. Patterson, I think he's made it very clear. He don't believe, I can't remember his exact word, I'm just paraphrasing here. He don't believe that Mr. Golding is speaking on behalf of OAS, he's speaking on behalf of himself as a private citizen.
But it doesn't matter, does it? Right. It really doesn't matter. Let's talk box 4062. Shaz has a figure there. Shaz can make a challenge. I have this amount of votes. Shaz has the audio clip of that same calling out from Mingo. So show us how you got this number up, no AFC. Especially why I'm calling box 4062, because this is showing you that you got 100 and something persons more than registered for that box. Shaz, you wanted to say something. Sorry, we drift away.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that the difference in the votes for that box should bring to light to everyone to see what really took place. And these ministers are going on the record saying that that's the correct number. We have actual audio of the reading from Clement Mingo, and we have the actual picture that we took at the polling station. So I don't. Yeah.
Shaz, what's after almost 80 days from March 2nd, sir? As a young man, first time in politics, not first time, but first time so active in politics where you put your head on the block, so to speak. Do you have any regrets? What's your thinking at this stage in your life, sir?
Well, first time as a candidate in any election, it's an honor opportunity to be in this process. But the next thing is that look where we are. Look which election that I end up in the first election. Look at the election. Look where we are today. It's a national embarrassment. We are actually the world is laughing at us right now at the current state of the election.
Correct.
I am satisfied that the process will finish. I'm glad that I'm part of the process. We'll get there, and this is just the beginning.
Well, Shaz, the sad thing is, Leonard, I want to pull you in on this one. The sad thing is what? Wherever in the world, whether it's in the UN, wherever you go, a Guyanese raises his hand or raises his face up to make a point in politics, the rest of the world are always going to pull this into their face. And, if it was not so serious, it would have been probably the biggest joke.
Well, it's very easy to defend. We're testing the laws to the limit, and like I said before, I'm not any lawyer. So we testing the laws. We tested the laws to the limits, and that's how we arrived at elections 2020. And I could say that with a very straight face. But my question to Mr. Shaz Ali is: would you recommend anybody, seeing what you're seeing here, to be a candidate or to participate in any other elections, maybe doing the same things that you would have done?
Yes, definitely. We need more people in the political arena, especially young, vibrant minds. It was a challenge to get candidates to contest in this election because there are so many small parties, new emerging small parties. And so the bright candidates were spread out all over. So I would encourage people, if you want to be a part of the change that you want to see in Guyana, sign up. You could just be a candidate of any political party. Just make sure your intentions are in the right place.
Correct. But there's another important dimension, Leonard, and I hate to bring this up when politics is being discussed. Do you know that as of today, there is a report that Venezuela failed to present any arguments, any papers to the International Court with regards to the border issue that Venezuela and Guyana has. And so I brought that up because of the following perspective. Venezuela fails to produce its papers to show its claim of winning or owning that thing. And the government of Guyana fails to show any papers to prove that it has won the elections. The comparisons are devastating, but it is this thing, and how do we go to any international forum and represent ourselves when our own homes cannot be brought to order? And the final point I'll make here, Shaz, is, as you know, the embassies, the head of various embassies in Guyana, they have called in the government to say, look, we need to ensure there is credible elections. We need to ensure that all these things are in place. How do you feel, Shaz, seeing that the international agencies are making this strident call? Does it make you feel comfortable as a young politician in Guyana, or does it make you feel sad that overseas people have to tell us to get our house in order?
Well, it's both. It's good to know that we have the overseas people, the CE countries, especially involved in the process. I mean, observation-wise, this way we could know that for future election we can have a transparent process, yet with them involved. I mean, they were here since 1992, started from the Carter Center. So having them here gives you confidence in future elections. And we need to put things in place that would avoid what took place during this election. Started from probably election reform. The process needs to change. The way of voting needs to change to avoid this from happening again. I mean, it had to happen one time before we could know something like this literally can happen. You just had to. There was no rigging at the polling station, but no one expected that it would have become the issue with the SOPs. That who would have ever thought that they would have this up their sleeve? That they actually got to the district 4 officer to blow the numbers.
Wow.
How they did that, I don't know.
Leonard?
Yes, and so I want to ask him one question straight up here. You believe that this process of a recount is going to be completed? We're going to see a resolution?
Yes, it will be completed. I could tell you for sure that it will not be done in 25 days. They're actually trying to add 6 more workstations. I saw them walking around today. The CEO Lowenfield and all the other GCOM commissioners, they were walking around and inspecting areas, different workstations where they could split in 2, because there are some very big workstations that they could actually split in 2 and get the counting on faster. And I also noticed that the counting agents have speed up the way they're counting. All the different workstations, the supervisor have different methods of counting. Some have slow methods, some have very fast methods. And I would project about, I wouldn't want to call out the direct number here, but probably about 50 days to complete the counting of this entire election. And it will get to the end. Too much eyes are watching. It will get to the end. Even if we come to the fact that we hear that they want to do a lockdown of the entire country, it would not stop the counting. It will just be a lockdown of the country. The counting will go on.
Great. Well, that is refreshing to hear, because I tell you what, the country certainly needs to have a motivational, kind of thing in place where we can convince ourselves that things will happen. Leonard, you wanted to say something?
No. Well, if what is a good time? Let's assume that they don't. That for some odd reason, I'm looking at the extremes here. For some odd reason, there is no permission to have any more counting stations. What is a good time based on the trajectory that we have here now to complete the counting, based on how we going so far?
Probably it would take at least 2 months.
2 months.
With the counting with 2 months with the 10 workstations right now.
And let's assume that they put that order. I think it's 6 more workstations. What is it likely?
6 workstations might take you into about 50 days.
50 days.
So. 50 days. Yes.
So we're not out of it, whichever permutation or whatever way you look at it. We're not out of the woods there yet.
Well,
hello?
I mean, as we go along, they're going to change the way that the speed of how they're counting.
Yes. I think,
Shaz, we're fortunate to be joined by Mr. Rhonda and Lam. Madam, how are you? And thank you for coming on such a late notice.
I'm well. How are you?
We have one of your colleagues here,
Very
Shaz
well,
Ali.
thanks.
I actually was just.
We have Mr. Ali here, and yeah, but we are concerned about the release, the short release you made, and so we wanted a little bit. We wanted to be educated. What's happening with this Region 5 that you say has started with quite a bang?
It actually started with quite a bang. I wasn't prepared for that, because all throughout the last couple of days, the most exciting thing was, oh, elector so and so has migrated, elector so and so has, is deceased, and we expressed concern about things like people's personal information coming out. So when Region 5 started, I had already started our tabulation process. And so in the observation, I noticed some figures, and I thought, okay. And then we waited for the observation reports to be read. And, like, for instance, there was one box where it said it had 2 persons on the OLE, but then 4 persons voted. Now, the anomaly there could be explained away with the fact that, this 2 GCOM staff might have voted with certificate of employment, things like that. There were no or discipline services added, which would explain why, it was over. Mm-hmm. But then the poll book was blank. There was there was nothing there to explain this away. And had I been in the room, I would have asked a couple of questions. Because in fact, the observation report just said nil. It said nothing about it. So the question was, did they have the poll book? Could it be explained away? And so what we're finding across the regions as we get into a new region, there seems to be a hint of differences in training for GCOM staff. And so different things happening across the regions. But the one that threw me for, and it's really why I said it started with a bang, was the fact that every ballot box is supposed to have a number of PE envelopes. Like, for instance, PE7s carry, depending on the number of voters and who they voted for, each party gets their own PE7 labeled, how many envelopes. One goes to regional, one goes to general. So the PE7s exist. But then things like it was missing PE4, quite a few of them. Like, for instance, we couldn't tell how many rejected ballots there were because there were no envelopes for them in the ballot box. So there were a number of P envelopes that should be present, and they were not. And of course, the coalition would have objected to the box being tabulated in the first place. So, it's an eye-opener very early in the region, and already we're facing documents that should be present in that ballot box and are not.
Well, let me ask the question straight up. What somebody like me who doesn't know how the system goes, what are some of the conclusions that one could make from that?
I would not make conclusions in that sense because, for instance, like I was explaining to you about the ballot boxes, the one where we have 2 voters and then, there are 4 votes found. The poll book could, if it were not looked at and it wasn't present, and there's nothing on the report to tell us whether somebody asked for the poll book, and nothing was found in it. So I can't even say that. That could be explained away in the sense that, 2 GCOM employees voted there with COEs. But then every other ballot box has carried all of the other documents. And so that presiding officer, really has to explain, well, even if they weren't rejected ballots or spoiled ballots, those envelopes should still be in there. So it could also be a case whereby they never arrived to the center, meaning they weren't present in the box when it was open, and that would be a glaring oversight. So I'm not going to speculate on it. It's just a massive anomaly. It wasn't just one envelope that was missing or one set of documents. It was quite a few listed on the observation report for it. And of course, the APNU AFC rep is on record as having asked where they were.
So what happens there if it's noted in the observation report? How long after is this going to be handled or resolved or so?
Well, what I can tell you is What I can tell you is that when the objection was made for that box not to be tabulated, the head of IT said that the fact that the documents reached to the tabulation room meant that it would have passed through a number of channels, including the CEO. So and he instructed the APNU reps to put their, send their objections to that box being tabulated higher than the tabulation center at this point. So again, we wait and we see. But it was glaring enough for me to, make a comment on it. One of the things that we have to understand in Guyana is that our people, this is not a sector of the elections that our people are really exposed to on a regular basis. Right. So this recount is a full education process, and I feel that all aspects of the elections, this is why TCI has, committed to sitting in there day after day with our reps and things like that. It is to bring sections of our elections so that people understand the process that gets us an elected government. It's very transparent. It is open to scrutiny. And of course, it would show any shortcomings that the body itself. And of course, we can push for some reform that would take away that political, wrangling that takes place within GCOM in its current construct.
So I think just before we end it, could you tell us there was an okay of 6 boxes, 6 counting stations today? Do we have an idea as to how soon that's likely to start?
I can tell you yesterday, for instance, there were some additional staff that entered each existing counting station, kind of like to understudy it.
Uh-huh.
And so that training started since yesterday that we could see. And then, of course, today we saw movements of things like dividers and things like that. But, of course, I don't ask questions, especially of GCOM staff, because I don't want anybody saying to me, oh, I'm compromising a situation, things like that. But it seems to me that they're gearing up to start soon. I just can't tell you when.
So any other thing that you noticed today that the people of Guyana should know, Rhonda?
Every day is a learning experience. One of the things that's important for me is that our people, and TCI, of course, is that our people see the process. When you sit on the outside, you don't understand why results are taking so long. Our system is so manual, and there is so much distrust within GCOM and, between political parties and GCOM as well, that the process has to be so long drawn out that I hope it explains why, sometimes it could take GCOM 7-8 days before it could give you a result for anything.
So I do thank you for that, and I think we would have covered it there. Rhonda Lamb, and she is the TCI presidential candidate, and she would have been there at the Artichon Convention Center. Rhonda, is normal. It's always been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope we're going to join you as maybe tomorrow sometime again. So thank you very much.
When I have another bang?
Well, you always have a bang. Regardless, it's always a pleasure talking to you. You have something.
Before you go, ma'am, give your experiences, your many years teaching and so forth. I want to leave you with this thought. When a child is caught cheating at the finals, they're not allowed to resit the exam. I wouldn't say more to you. We'll discuss it another day.
By me frightened.
So good night to you, ma'am, and thank you for coming on. Shaz, sorry we got Rhonda on and took away her chat. I must tell you though that a lot of persons have inboxed me over the past 5-10 minutes. They are hitting your website, so thank you for that. Shaz, any other thoughts from you, sir?
Just want to assure everyone that we are in the process, and the process will finish. The results will be credible, and we'll get back to normal eventually.
Good. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, that has been Mr. Shaz Ali from the TCI. His presence in the Artuchon Convention Center, I must tell you, has been refreshing. And Shaz, I want to say something to you that I said to Kian Jabor 2 nights ago. A lot of people have said that you guys are the small parties. I think I'm on record from since before election day. I was saying you guys are the new parties, not small parties, and I reject the label of small parties because the elections are not over. We don't know if you're really small, so we have to wait until that time. But Shaz, I must tell you, a lot of faith, a lot of eyes are on you guys. If the TCI and the LJP and all of the new parties, if they don't achieve anything else in this process, you know what it does? What they have achieved is to let other voices be within the accounting center. Can you imagine if we had this problem and it was only PPP and the PNC or APNU in that accounting center? It would have been just a two-way fight and nobody would have been ready to listen to anything because it was all going to be biased.
Well, let me put it this way, and this is something, an encouragement to Mr. Shaz Ali, Rhonda Lamb, and the other very young folks that we have there. We would have seen Timothy Jonas, very young man too, bursting onto the scene. This elections 2020 has really thrown up some very good surprises. I'm very proud of the people, of the candidates. And I agree with you, Yog. These are not small parties. I think they're giants in their own little rights. And Guyana should be proud. If anything, if there's any good stories that should be coming out of elections 2020, is the young people, very vibrant, very eloquent, very charismatic. We have some young leaders here, and I think they should be molded. If the two parties, the two giants, are going to remain there, and we're talking here, the APNU AFC, if they remain, the People's Progressive Party, in their construct, and if I was within them and advising them, I would say to go grab these fellows up pretty quickly, because these are the future leaders of Guyana. That's a good story that is coming out.
Yeah, and you know, Leonard, I will repeat what I said earlier. If there's any party after this process, I know this is a long shot that I'm playing here, but if any party after this process is to be said that they rigged or they attempted to rig this election, they should be banned from future elections in Guyana. But the other thing that I'd like to say to the newer parties on the scene, Shaz, you guys have come big on honesty and integrity that the big ones have come small on, you know, and keep up the good work. And we certainly look forward to another update from you in a week's time, Shaz, if you don't mind. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, just before we say goodnight to you all, let me remind you, join Mr. Leonard Gildarie tomorrow at 1:30 on Elections Watch and the COVID Watch. I certainly hope to be joining him too as we continue to look at what's happening up on that front. Tomorrow night, I have a surprise guest. I'm not going to disclose the name, but I have a surprise guest for you all tomorrow night, albeit to say he is one of the older members of not the oldest party, but the second oldest political party in Guyana. And so we are going to be joined by him, and I look forward to a good conversation with that gentleman tomorrow. And tomorrow we will disclose to everyone his name. And I want to tell you all, ladies and gentlemen, on Monday night, we are going to have another huge night here in room 592. Monday night, we want to have a deep dive. Leonard, we're going to have a deep dive into an area that is extremely critical to Guyana. As we said, we keep talking about elections and COVID, but Monday night, we're going to be joined by some experts on the environment. We're going to be joined by Miss Annette Arjun Martins, who, as we know, if it's anybody that has Guyana true in her heart, it's Annette. Annette Arjun and her family per se. But Annette will be joining us on Monday night to talk about, maritime and conservation of the environment. But most particularly, Annette will be joined by Mr. Joe Ryan, who is a marine ecologist coming from, an international scene. So we'll have an international player joining us. And we're going to also be having a UWI lecturer, Mr. Stephen Munsami, joining us on Monday night talking about the environment. So that's going to be a big one, Leonard.
Yes, and some very exciting things. I thought for one moment there that you're saying that you're going to bring Mingo. I would like Mr. Claremont Mingo here. In fact, I'm going to tell you guys, I've been we've been trying to make contact with him, and we're going to continue here with Kaito Radio. The man would have a story to say, and Yog, as in any good media person who's worth the salt, I would want to say that we should get Mr. Clement Mingo. Obviously, he would have his own side of the story to tell, and we should tell it again. I'm sure that it would be very interesting. So we're going to continue to try to get Mr. Mingo. He's been very quiet. We have not really heard from him since the two times. In fact, that was the first time that I ever heard about the name Clement Mingo. And I would love to, from a media perspective, to really talk to that gentleman, to let him give us his take.
Tonight I've worn my church clothes here, so I certainly hope the pastor can join us. But certainly, and Leonard, I wish to echo what you said. To all of our political players in Guyana, whatever political parties you're from, you have your own story and you have your own interpretation of why you do what you do. And please know that you are welcome to come tell your story on Elections Watch or on Room 592 on Kaito Radio. We have an open door policy, and we respect that you have your own story and maybe your own spin to your own story as we seek to unleash the truth in our shows here. Leonard?
Yes, and I do thank you for that, Yogi. You know, I think it's not too late. I think we're very early in the game, and you always say that we should be very positive. We should say to our people, our leaders, that, you know, it is not too late for us to really pull a rabbit out of the hat, although we're deep, waist deep in what COVID has thrown us into. I think it's still time. There's enough time for us to really work together to see how we could get out of this. And I think there's enough time.
Correct. And I would still like to invite our guests from APNU AFC too. I would like to say that, you know, there are so many allegations to you, ladies and gentlemen, about Mingo's declarations, and, you know, a number of political parties have put forward their SOPs. I would certainly like to invite you, bring a couple of your SOPs on board and let us have a discussion. Let us unleash the truth, tell your side of the tale. We can't say it enough. But Leonard, you're certainly right. We have an open door policy in Room 592 and on Elections Watch. Leonard, tomorrow our show is on at 1:30, isn't it? And we open the lines.
Yes, as normal, it has been fantastic this entire week. We had people calling us from all the way up in Crabwood Creek. We had people in Essequibo. We had people all along the coast on the East Bank, and they've been joining us. And you know what is good? You know, we talk stories. We sitting in the studio or wherever we sitting, and you're not listening to the man in the street. It's very important that we keep our finger on the pulse of Guyana. And the only persons or the persons that could tell us that are the simple, normal, ordinary folks. So I want to say good night to you and have a pleasant rest of the night.
Well, thank you, certainly, Leonard. And ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners all across the country, it's been wonderful having you here in Room 592, and we certainly look forward to taking your calls tomorrow, to receiving your messages. Send us a WhatsApp, tweet, or Facebook message. That's fine, and we'll read it out for you. We have dealt with some tonight who prefer to remain anonymous but wanted their questions asked. We asked those questions. So have a wonderful night, and see you all tomorrow on Mr. Gildarie's Election Watch. Have a good night as we say bye-bye now from Room 592 on Kaito Radio.
Good night.